Back, Indiana, Michigan State. At Michigan State, so Indiana has to go on the road for this one. So I feel like every single week there's some kind of other obstacle Indiana has to face. This one is going on the road. I mean, obviously they've been on the road at other points of the season, but this is a little bit of a better team that they have to go on the road against. However, it does look like Kurtis Rourke will most likely return. That's not been confirmed yet, like publicly, but that seems to be the sentiment that we're getting from the writers and people like that. I think that does really, really good things for Indiana. And honestly, Zach, I don't know if I have all that much analysis other than Indiana, good, Michigan State, not as good, and Indiana will win by a lot. Your thoughts, Zach?
First of all, I am offended that this game is on Peacock.
Yeah.
I mean, Indiana is must-see TV. Put Northwestern Purdue on Peacock. What are we doing? No offense to Northwestern Purdue fans.
Northwestern Purdue wouldn't get any viewers. Like, I'm sorry, Northwestern and Purdue fans, but there's not a lot of people seeking that game out right now.
But why? I think Peacock's a good platform, but I hate that college football has gone to like some pay-per-view type stuff. Like it's just terrible. So I've seen your score prediction. So I'm not going to unveil it yet. I think we look at this game a little differently.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah.
Do tell.
So I think Michigan State's been improving. And I think there was a real legitimate shot for them to win last week against Michigan. And that was against a Michigan team that I think has came out of were they coming off a bye? I'm trying to remember. Yeah, they came off a bye.
Yeah.
They came off a bye and they actually kind of addressed things, unlike a certain team that we'll talk about at the end of the show. Yeah. But I think if not for some typical Michigan State shenanigans, I think Michigan State actually would have won that game on the road. And I think they're putting things together. I'll say this. I think Aiden Childs is the most talented quarterback they've faced. Now, I think he's certainly prone to turnovers. So I'm not saying he is the best quarterback they've faced, but I think he's the most talented quarterback they've faced. I think the defense is better than people give it credit for. And I just think Indiana is kind of due for a letdown. So I don't think Indiana's going to lose. So before Indiana fans tar and feather me, how dare you? But I think Michigan State's going to put up some resistance in this game. And I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be closer than you think it's going to be. So.
Okay. I can hear you on that. I think that Michigan State has good trenches, and that is one of their biggest strengths. I mean, I've said that on this show so many times. I don't even want to say it's underrated at this point. Obviously, nationally it is, but if you watch the show, I think that. But the thing is, Indiana has really, really good trenches too. So when the strongest part of a team is not as good as the other part of another team, I look at this game and I'm like, where does Michigan State score more than 20? How does that happen in this game? Because I can't see it happening other than Aiden Childs just going off and having 3 touchdown passes, going 24 for 28 and 300 plus yards, which is possible, but it's another one of those things. Like I said with the Illinois game, it was possible for Illinois to beat Oregon, just the path for it to happen, there were so few and Oregon had so many more paths. I look at this game kind of the same way with Indiana and Michigan State. Are there paths for Michigan State to win? Sure. There's just not very many, and there's far more paths for Indiana to win. And I think Indiana, with Kurtis Rourke coming back, they're going to be coming out, and they're going to be looking to try and make a statement again, because if we know anything about Kirk Cinetti, it's that he wasn't satisfied with that last game. They only put up 31 points. That was their season low they had against FIU at the beginning of the season. You know he wasn't happy with that
Mhm.
one. And so if Kurtis Rourke is good to come back, you best believe Kirk Cinetti is going up to those guys and saying, hey, we got to get 40 plus in this one. We have to assert our dominance because guess what? They got us ranked 13th in the polls. I really feel like that just continues to fuel this Indiana team. I think if Indiana was ranked top 5 and they felt a little comfortable, maybe you could see a little bit of a letdown and you could see a situation where it's a close game with Michigan State. But man, like Michigan State has 21 sacks on the season. To me, that's fool's gold. That is complete fool's gold because they've not had a game with more than 4 pressures against a Big Ten team not named Maryland, and Maryland has the worst offensive line in the Big Ten by far. So for me, like they're not going to put pressure on Kurtis Rourke, even if it isn't Kurtis Rourke. If it's Taven Jackson, and I'm banking on it being Kurtis Rourke, I think he's going to play.
Yeah.
But even if they don't, like they're not going to put a bunch of pressure on Taven Jackson. And if you look at that Michigan State game against Iowa and say, well, they stopped the run in that one, the difference in that one is they didn't respect Cade McNamara at all. You have to respect Kurtis Rourke. Now, like I said, if it's Taven Jackson, that's a different story. Not that Taven Jackson's bad, he's just not Kurtis Rourke. That's a little bit of a different story. You can key in on the run game a little bit more. But man, we saw Indiana, they have multiple ways to beat teams now. And I think that just plays into their favor. I think that they're fired up. And honestly, like I look at Michigan State, and the one thing I look at on offense to say, okay, maybe they have a chance is Marsh and Foster on the outside. But what did Denzel Boston and Giles Jackson do? 43 yards and 11 yards. Like, I'm not saying those guys are better or worse. I think that that's a good wide receiver tandem, just like I think Marsh and Foster are a good wide receiver tandem.
Mm-hmm.
But with D'Angelo Pons and the secondary Indiana display that they had, I mean, 2 picks, 0 touchdowns for Will Rogers. Like, I think this is a fired up team. Honestly, I think Indiana cruises 49-13.
49-13. Woo.
Yeah.
I think you make good points. Someone put it in the chat. I think Michigan State does play better at home. I will also contend that Jonathan Smith is quite a bit better of a coach than Jed Fish. So
I mean, yeah, but what was that stupid decision he made against Michigan? Like, you know you got a turnover porn quarterback, and it's 20 seconds left, and you're going to try to drive down the field and get a touchdown when you have the lead going into half? Like,
okay, that's one decision.
yeah.
Jed Fish has made a litany of those decisions.
Yes, that's true.
So, and I certainly think that could happen. I'll also just say, when I say letdown, I'm not saying letdown in the sense that Indiana like is, puffing up their chest and they're like not taking Michigan State seriously. I wonder if Kurtis Rourke comes back, is there some rust? And is there some like not collateral damage, but like is there something, and is again mentioned in the chat, but like he's shaken off a hand injury. Like, I just wonder if that adds to some things. And I think Michigan State is good enough to exploit that to some degree. I still think Indiana wins. I've got 34-23.
I guess my thing is even if Kurtis Rourke, let's say he does come out and he's not able to throw the ball like he was before, we really think that Michigan State is going to be able to stop this rushing attack? Like Justin Hellison, Tyson Law, like Tyson Law. Like, I mean, I know, like I said, I know they stopped Iowa, but give me Kurtis Rourke with 2 screws in his thumbs over Cade McNamara any day. Like,
well, yeah, amen. That's fair.
So I don't know. Like I hear you, and I think that you're right. Like if you do get a Kurtis Rourke that's maybe rusty coming back, and maybe he doesn't have quite the same arm strength because he doesn't have the same grip on the ball and stuff like that. Like I hear you on that, but I still look at this guy and think he has such good decision making. He is so cool, calm, and collected. And there is something about an offense that runs this smooth that just has a leader. And I think that was the part of Kurtis Rourke that I didn't anticipate coming into the season. I thought he'd be really good in the Big Ten because he was good at Ohio. Yeah. I didn't anticipate that he could lead this good of an offense because I didn't see the leadership capabilities.
Yeah.
But man, when they go to that sideline for IU, Kurtis Rourke, he's up there with every single guy. He's being a leader. He's getting on those guys, and I mean, it's like a mini Signetti out there, right? As much as Signetti expects stuff from his team, Kurtis Rourke is the same way. He is completely bought into this Signetti brand of ball, and I just, again, I'm not saying you're wrong or like disrespecting what you're saying. I just look at it and I'm like, they got so much leadership. Signetti has proved he's such a great coach. Um, I would be surprised if they win by less than 14.
Yeah, that's fair.
I would be
That's
surprised.
fair. That's fair.